Action! Welcome back, film fans, to the Silver Screen podcast. I am your host, Mike Wilson. Apologies for our slightly prolonged absence, but hopefully you've been keeping up with us with our past episodes and you caught our New Year special and our special review of the Oscar nominations. We are back now for this kind of ongoing series of episodes. I'm hoping to bring an episode every couple of weeks, so we can hopefully get a bit more regular, but if you've been keeping up with us, you'll know that we're going through some issues at the moment, just on a personal level. DK, my usual co-host, is having some issues medically and such at the moment, and personal stuff that we don't need to get into, so he's not been able to join me for this one, but I'm hoping he'll be back for our next review. And we obviously send out all our best wishes and hope that you start to feel better soon, DK. And we were also going to be joined by someone to help us edit and do occasional guesting, which I will eventually reveal, but he's not been able to join us for other reasons. In this case, completely different reasons, but also, just a series of bad luck. So you're stuck with just me as your main host, I'm afraid. So hopefully that'll be good enough. But I don't do this alone. I still have a guest, and it will be a guest who is familiar to you if you are a listener to our other podcast, what I call our sister podcast, the Hit or Miss Star Trek. That is Adrienne. Hello, welcome, Adrienne.
Hello, and good morning from Los Angeles. It is early and it is sunny but cold.
It's quite nice here because it's obviously we are in different places, and here in England it's just gone to that nice dusk time where you look out the window and it's like that nice lovely orangey color as the sun goes down. So it looks lovely here. So yeah, I keep forgetting to ask you this. Your name is Adrienne Park-Tucker, is that right? Before I misname you in some way. Yes, okay. I almost announced you as that and then was like, I probably should double check that's actually your name before I do that. So, but yeah, so as I said, you've been, this is your first, if I'm not mistaken, non-Star Trek movie review, yes?
This is it. This is the first non-Star Trek movie. I was looking at the title of the movie like, oh, I'm going to watch a boxy movie. Okay, I'll do it for the team.
Yeah, because you joined our Discord and you've been just a shining light over there. You've been really lovely and just great to talk to. Again, if anybody fancies joining our Discord, you can just ask on any of our social medias, and it's just a safe place for geeky chat and people with similar interests, basically just saying any old rubbish, trying to make each other laugh, posting geeky stuff, and having as many channels as we can fit in, I suppose.
It's a fun and welcoming place. It really is. I love it.
It is, yeah. Hopefully, just like the podcast, I've had somebody today say that the podcasts that we do have a very relaxed feel, and I'm like, I'm happy with that, because that feels like at least we're not being confrontational or hard to listen to. So I'll take relaxed for sure.
Nice. It's true.
You've obliquely referenced the fact that we're reviewing the movie Creed today, as you can probably see on screen anyway, if you're watching on the YouTubes. But yeah, the reason that Adrienne specifically was a guest, other than the fact that she would jump in anyway, because she's nice, was that I put out in the Discord, would anybody like to review this with me? We're reviewing it, of course, because Creed 3 is out, I think, due out. So I thought, maybe catch the algorithm, maybe talk about these movies. And when I asked in the Discord, it turns out nobody had seen the Creed movies, which was kind of devastating. And what's worse, a good number of the younger people hadn't even seen a single Rocky movie, which is criminal, frankly.
It is criminal. It is blasphemous. It is just plain wrong.
Absolutely. So, it isn't necessarily, you were saying before we started recording, Adrienne, it isn't necessarily the sort of thing you would normally choose to watch, but you were willing to for the podcast. And then hopefully at least it's been maybe a surprise to you. So
it has been a surprise. And I at first I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to do my best. But then it turned out my husband, David, and my son, Wesley, had seen it. They actually went to go see it together in the theater. So I had forgotten all about that. So, they had stuff to say too. And it was just a good time. And I was playing it in the office, and then I heard the soundtrack and I was like, turn this up very loud. So I turned it up and we had a good time.
Yeah, that's worth seeing straight out the bat. The soundtrack to this film is fantastic.
It is, especially when I heard Tupac. I was like, okay, this is going to get loud.
So yep, definitely. I'll probably get into it later, but I just love that Tessa Thompson is actually a really good
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. The second time I watched that, I said, I'm going to focus on her. I'm going to watch what she does, and she's really great.
Yeah, so you've watched this twice already?
Actually watched it more than that.
Wow, already?
Well, I have substantial ADD, so I
Oh,
missed a lot, and I sat down. And then the other night you said, "Well, yeah, I got my notes together and I'm ready." I'm like, "Oh, notes! I gotta watch it again. Darn it!" So we turned it on again, and
oh, bless you. Thank you so much for doing that. Not everybody really feels the need to make notes. We just kind of go off of as we go along. But you know that my autistic brain needs order, so I tend to
yes,
keep things that way.
the
So
man needs his structure. So let's
yes,
get it done.
definitely.
Yep.
So yeah, as I said, sorry if this is repetitive if you are a podcast listener, but to that end, I tend to break the review down into sections where we start with a little kind of behind the scenes info, and then I just go by like acting, directing, what's like general sort of writing and plot, music and sound effects, any visual effects, and then at the end of the review, of course, I go over myself and our guest's favorite character moment line. Then we give our conclusion and a score out of 5, and then work out a average between the two scores in this case for the film to give it a final score and hopefully convince some people to watch them because not enough people clearly are. So there you go. But yeah, so without any further ado, then normally this would be DK's job, but as I said, he's not feeling too great, so he's not with us. So I'm going to jump into the behind the scenes section, if that's okay with you, Adrienne.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm going to put a little bit of background music on and then just go through the fair little bit of information that I found when it comes to behind the scenes. This movie, principal photography, began on January the 19th, 2015, on location at Goodison Park, with the first scene that was shot taking place during a Barclays Premier League football match between Everton, of which Stallone and Tony Bellew, who plays Conlon, are fans, and West Bromwich Albion. Goodison would later host the climactic fight in the film between Donny and Conlon, and also Bellew's real-life title fight against Ulunga Makabu in May 2016, which was the first outdoor boxing match in Liverpool since 1949, apparently. I made a note of this because we've already, as I said, we talk a lot on the Discord, and we've mentioned being an American that you're not super au fait with like English football or what you would call soccer, and I thought you'd get a kick out of knowing it was like a soccer stadium, basically.
Yeah, that's sort of a thing with me and all my Brit buddies out here is that I don't know any of the teams, but it's kind of cool that hey, sports fans are sports fans. If they're serious enough, they're willing to watch other sports.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's just it was nice for me as an English guy just watching and thinking like, yeah, Goodison Park in Liverpool area. I know.
That's really cool.
Seeing the like Everton club badge on Ricky Conlon's like boxing gear and stuff.
Right, that's so cool.
That was pretty cool. Yeah. Let's see. Filming also took place in Philadelphia, obviously. In early February, an empty store in Philadelphia was converted into a boxing gym, and that's where some of the training scenes were shot. Cool. So I'm kind of pleased that Philly was represented as well.
Yeah, really, really, the whole Rocky series really is an homage to Philly, etc.
Definitely, 100%. And we'll get into it, I'm sure. But seeing I think it's the Philadelphia Museum of Art, it's called, where the iconic steps are in the Rocky statue. Fair enough. Speaking of Rocky, Sylvester Stallone requested that Michael B. Jordan wear the famous American flag trunks that Apollo Creed had worn in Rocky, and Rocky then wore in Rocky 3 and 4 to keep it as tradition in the Rocky universe. So I always love bits like that, little hints to the past. This is the first film in the Rocky series, however, that is not written by Sylvester Stallone. He did say that he was providing occasional input about the character of Rocky as he played him, obviously as an actor would, but yeah, no writing credit for him on this one. While training, Adonis wears a shirt with the message, "Why do I want to fight? Because I can't sing and dance." This is an actual line from Rocky to Adrienne, Freudian slip, during their first ice skating date. And Tessa Thompson, as we've mentioned, who plays the musician Bianca in the film, is a musician in real life. She's produced music as part of the electro band Court a Ghost and wrote 3 songs that are on the Creed soundtrack called Grip, Breathe, and Shake You. And they're very good.
They are. They're wonderful.
Absolutely. And finally, among this film's accolades, it was selected by the National Board of Review as one of the top 10 films of 2015. Stallone won the National Board of Review Award for Best Supporting Actor, the Critics' Choice Award for Best Supporting Actor, and the Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture. And he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor and had it robbed from under him by Mark Rylance, if you ask me. But never mind. We'll not get into that controversy. So, I think it was Mark Rylance that won for Bridge of Spies that year, but yeah, I felt Stallone thoroughly deserving. I was pleased.
He did. I think he did.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Before we jump in, then, as I say, we're going to do it by section. Did you have any kind of spoiler-free initial thoughts going into the movie? You were a little bit reticent, I'm guessing, because you're just not a huge boxing fan.
No, and I mean, I had seen the Rocky movies, and of course, I have a personal little thing about the Rocky movies because my whole life I have heard "Yo, Adrienne" and all that stuff. So
I just did. I apologize.
but I had seen them, but I like them, and I know the first Rocky is really a great movie. So, but I don't like boxing as a sport. I don't like blood. I don't like hitting. I appreciate it. I appreciate the Olympics and boxing. I appreciate those kind of things, but boxing is just not anything I would be interested in normally. Yeah. So.
I will say, I think it's worth noting that even if you're not a boxing fan, you can enjoy these films.
Oh yes,
I don't think that matters. I think if you are a boxing fan, you might get a little more out of it because I know my brother who loves these films is a fan of that, and appreciate that they're using like real life boxers and stuff like that.
I loved that they had real life boxers. They had the guy that makes the gloves. And, real things. So I thought that was great. I mean, I started looking people up. I go, no, is this the real guy? Yes. And Stitch, the guy that does the wound, fixing the wounds. Yeah. He's, this is real. And I think it's probably done a lot for boxing, to be honest. It's probably brought some people into it that wouldn't have been into it before. And one thing I appreciate is that there were female boxers.
Yes, well,
they were in the gym, and I love that. So,
yeah, well, you're preaching to the converted. We have some really good English female boxers, like Olympic level. We're quite proud of over here.
Yes,
because I don't love the sport. It's nice to at least see a little bit of representation. So that's good.
That was great.
Yeah, like you, I'm not really a huge fan of boxing as a sport, just because I guess I'm a little bit of a wuss by some standards. But
same.
I can always get into it in the Rocky films because you know that it's fictional and you can kind of feel a bit guilt-free about it, So, but yeah, it does hook you in. It really does. As you said, it could be any kind of fictionalized version of a sport, I think, but it works. Awesome. So yeah, my history then with these is worth just pointing out that I've seen and loved every Rocky film, including the 2 Creed movies, sometimes multiple times. It was some of the first films that my parents showed us when I was really young. And I remember myself and my cousin Stuart, whenever we would have sleepovers, would put on 1 or 2 of the Rocky films and just hang out and then get really hyper at the running around imitating the sort of fights at the end of the movies and stuff. So they have a special place in my heart and I love them. And yeah, I think even as a kid, you can appreciate the likes of Rocky 3 and 4 because they're not too deep. And then as I grew up, I started realizing that the drama in films like Rocky 1 and 2 was a real strength as well. And I think that's kind of something that Creed has going for it, is that it works on both of those levels. It's a really good, powerful character drama, but it's also just a fun, punch the air, feel bumped up boxing movie.
It really is. It really focuses on the interpersonal relationships, which is what the first Rocky was about for me, and with all the bonds he makes with the different people and how they are with each other. This one really focused on what's important in life, found family, love, commitment, caring about each other, and not giving up.
Yeah, definitely. And it wears its heart on its sleeve. As I say, we'll talk, I'm sure, at length about the themes, which are pretty obvious as you go through. But like I said, if you think, I don't want to watch the Rocky movies because they're cheesy or they're just all about a sport you don't care about or whatever, please do. They're way better than I could perhaps express to you than you might think. So, and there's a reason that first one in particular was nominated for a bunch of Oscars for the acting and writing and other things. So, awesome. So then I will start with, talking of that, the acting in the film. That's the first section I've got. So we may as well start with Michael B. Jordan, since he's the lead of the film. And I'll throw it to you, Adrienne, and ask what were your thoughts about young Adonis Hollywood Johnson / Creed in this movie?
I was impressed by his acting. I was, at first I thought they would make it so much about just his physique. But they made it a lot more about his acting. I don't know about his range with his expressions of his face in this movie, but it's a lot about the character, about who he, growing up, how he did, and but I appreciate his acting.
Yeah, I think I saw that whole expression thing as being kind of relevant to the character because it seems like he's going through a majority of the movie with a chip on his shoulder, and it's hard to convey that because without seeming moody or petulant, I suppose. So
True.
a little bit of like, you don't always feel the best way towards him if you're feeling like, all right, come on, dude. You just, but at the same time, I always did feel sort of sympathetic towards him, even if at times he makes it hard. And I thought it was a great performance, as you said, just little moments like two completely different scenes, but two of the key things that I made notes of were the first time that he meets Tessa Thompson's character, Bianca. Sorry, I just blanked on that there. The first time he meets Bianca and he just switches from angrily like knocking on her door to like, wow, this is a gorgeous woman, and trying to suddenly be sort of charming and polite. And all of their scenes together, I think, have great chemistry. And on the complete flip side of that, the like acting level in the performance when Rocky sort of has admitted he's not going to get any treatment, and that's obviously annoyed Adonis, who doesn't want him to die, basically. And then when Rocky tries to repair things later, you just get that sheer anger unleashed from him, and he's just like, get your sick ass out of here. You're not my actual family. You got my real family killed. And I was like, ooh, that's really powerful. I felt that, so.
That line struck with me. So, of course, I had to go back and watch Rocky 4.
Oh, I love Rocky 4.
Because I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Because it's been years since I saw it. And I had to go back and watch it. And I had forgotten all about the towel part.
Oh, it does go into that in Creed, though, because they do reference, doesn't it? Because when he first meets Rocky even says, that fight went on too long. Maybe I should have stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely my fault. And you can see there's a little bit of residual guilt on Rocky's part.
Yes. Yes. So I had to dive back in full-heartedly and review all that stuff because my old brain doesn't kick in like I would hope it would.
Oh, but, mine neither, believe me. Yeah, that's cool. So this is completely apropos of nothing, I guess, but have you actually seen Creed 2 yet, by the way?
No, I didn't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess up my memory because then I would spout something and you would say, oh, well, Adrienne, just so you know, that's from Creed 2. And then I would be like, oh, okay.
That's fair enough. I've seen both, and if you've went back and watched Rocky 4 to tie into Creed, you are going to love Creed 2 because
well, let's do it.
Creed is the son of Ivan Drago in that movie.
Ooh,
so
I didn't realize that. Okay, nice. Woo, something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think I actually might prefer Creed 2 even more than Creed 1 because of the connections to the Rocky franchise, and there's actually a really good subplot with Rocky and his son as well in that film.
Oh, neat. Okay, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. Yeah, more people should be watching these movies.
They should be. As well. Dang it! Stand out on the street corner with signs.
Definitely. Oh, I would if I could, but I'm hoping that the presence of Jonathan Majors in Creed 3 is going to get some bums in seats that'll then go back and watch the previous two.
Nice.
We'll see. So, did you have any other thoughts on Michael B. Jordan then in this film?
Well, I think there was. I don't know because I haven't researched enough, but I would really like to watch the outtakes. I think there was probably some impromptu things he did to lighten the load. Like, I don't know about the Marlon Brando imitation. I don't know if that was, an impromptu thing. But yeah, I think he probably brought a lot of chemistry. I think he and Sylvester Stallone, I don't know, but their chemistry is so great. I just feel like he's probably that kind of actor. I mean, I don't know. He could be horrible. How would I know?
I don't think
I could drive down to Hollywood, down 20 minutes down the freeway, ask everybody. But I feel like he might have brought some, bonded with everybody pretty well. And so it seemed like it.
We know that he'd worked with Ryan Coogler, the director, before on the film Fruitvale Station. So they kind of would have had that chemistry in shorthand anyway. And later go on to work with him again on Black Panther. So he's, I think, been in 90%, if not all, of Ryan Coogler's movies. And the fact that he is directing Creed 3 means that he's obviously got something that allows him to do that take charge kind of thing. So I think they might be right. So,
I didn't know he was directing it. Or he did direct it. I didn't know. Okay, great. Wow, wonderful.
The upcoming one, he's directing as well.
Oh, so. Wonderful. Okay.
His directorial debut, in fact.
Nice. So, all right. Maybe I should see it in the theater. We have a great little theater right by my house. I should hopefully plays there.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. It's going to be huge, like I said. Or maybe that's just me being hopeful. Yeah, but no, I loved the character of Creed in this film. As I said, I hadn't really. The first time I watched Creed was in 2015, and I wasn't really that familiar with Michael B. Jordan. He'd done that other Ryan Coogler movie, and I think he'd done the film Chronicle that I hadn't seen, and possibly the Fantastic Four abysmal movie that was released roughly around then.
That's funny.
But yeah. But like in this film, I was like, this is leading actor carrying the film. You can see he's going to be something huge, and he still is, as you say. So, and he's obviously moving into directing and stuff. So
Awesome.
So the next person that's obviously worth talking about then would be Tessa Thompson, who we mentioned playing Bianca. As I said, fantastic music performer. It's just it's a gift from the gods for the director and the writers that she happens to be a really talented musician anyway. And
Yes.
I think as I say, I was trying to like name key scenes for those characters. Basically, all of the scenes with her are key, but I especially love when it's the second or third time they've started hanging out, and he just basically starts making a rap for her when she's like putting a beat behind him, and they're just hanging out, just being young people.
Yeah. Funny that you bring that up, because I was wondering, is this one of the things that was spontaneous? Because she starts laughing. And he's just having fun with the whole cheesesteak, cheesecake. And I'm wondering, like, this is really, I wonder, Yeah.
I'd love to know. Maybe I should start watching some more of the behind the scenes for this particular, because I'd love to know if that was just Ryan Coogler who was kind of saying, like, well, just play it easy, just hang out together, see what happens. We'll roll the cameras. If nothing happens, fair enough. But if
no, of course, the word I was trying to think of was ad-libbed. I was wondering if it was.
Yes.
So I think some of their stuff might have been just for it makes it more natural because they're just getting to know each other, and so I mean they probably just told them, hey, have fun.
And if it's not, then it's credit to the writer, because it seems like it's really natural.
It does, doesn't it? It's a really sweet scene. It really is.
Well,
fun
everyone
and happy
together is, as you said, it's just I love that, and again, she's the kind of the emotional core of it. So that's when I felt the most that I gave a crap, which was happening throughout the movie, but especially about him when he's made a fool of himself at her show, and she's just kind of not forgiving him quite so easily.
Yeah, that's what I loved about how her character was written. She's a strong person. She isn't, I really love the fact that she was a musical artist on her own. She had her own players in the band with her. She already has her own career. She's not just like somebody that's like hanging out or anything. And she's funny. She's smart. She's compassionate. But she's tough.
Yeah.
And I loved her character. I thought she really, her acting really, she just shines, and she's a scene stealer. She's funny. Like in a lot of the celebratory parts, I'm watching her.
Certainly at the end, I can.
Yeah.
You mean,
I was like, oh, yeah, good for her. Perfect casting, I think. I
think so, yeah. And I was just going to say the same thing as you were kind of getting at. I love that she has that cheeky side, the character. So that when he first moves out and she's kind of like, oh, who is it? This is my uncle. Oh, he's white. And then Rocky's sort of glib responsive. Yeah, my whole life.
Yeah. Oh, Rocky had some great lines, and Sylvester Stallone had great timing.
Oh, completely.
But I love how they wrote her like she's tough. She's at first she says, "Well, where are you from?" And I'm from California or Cali, and she says, "Oh, is that how they teach you to talk to females?" And he's saying, he doesn't lose his footing. He just says, "Look, I want to go and eat. Want to go eat?" So that was, I like, that was cool. And I love that she didn't let him in when he said, look, I need you right now. Rocky's sick. I'm down. And she was like, look, hey, I got my own things to do right now, because he really sabotaged her event, well, not, I mean, apparently they did okay, but at the beginning, he did that.
But I feel like that was a fantastic scene, because it's really hard to thread that line in that when he reveals, like, I'm not making excuses, but Rocky's sick. She doesn't come off as heartless, but you do fully sort of stay behind her when you're like, no, I get that you're standing your ground, because he still was a bit of a jerk, basically.
He was a bit of a jerk, and he used violence, which is, she's saying, hey, that's for the ring. That's not part of my life. And I really appreciated that. And then, of course, she closes the door, and I didn't catch this on the first watch. She took out her hearing aid so she couldn't hear him.
Oh, I noticed that when he's still sort of asking to.
Yeah, and she's like, nope, I got to stand my ground right now. There have to be boundaries, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, but as I say, it was so weird because in the performance you could still see that she did care. Like she wasn't like,
Hmm.
I don't care about Rocky being sick, but
Yeah.
it was kind of tearing her apart a little bit, as you're saying. And that's how I read the whole hearing aid thing, was like, I can't listen to it because I will
Yes.
probably just give in. And
Yeah, because I would. I'm like,
yeah,
yes, of course, Michael B. Jordan. Yes, come in, have some tea, of course. But she wasn't. She wasn't having it.
exactly. And I love this is going back to what I was saying earlier, but in that scene with Rocky, she doesn't act like a lot of the other characters kind of do at the gym and stuff, where she's fawning all over him. She doesn't even reveal that she knows who he is, just that he's a white guy. Then when he's gone, like into the van, just says to Adonis, "When were you going to tell me your uncle was Rocky Balboa?" You know.
Exactly. Yeah. But
And I'm like, oh, she does know.
yeah, she's Philly down to the bone. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. So yeah, just a great performance. It's probably my favorite film of Tessa Thompson's as well, because I'm not overly fond of her in the Thor movies and such that I've seen.
Well, she doesn't have all the best lines. That's just
No,
writing, and she
yeah,
deserves her
yeah,
own. Yeah, she's cool.
but yeah, great in this. And so next up, obviously, Oscar nominee Stallone. We should probably talk about. This is the one that got me these parts of the film, obviously. Probably because, as I've already mentioned, I've got a history with this character. So this would be the 7th film that I've seen this character in. And you didn't need to do much. Like the second he comes up from the cellar or whatever at Adrienne's restaurant, I'm already an emotional mess. I'm like, Rocky! All the pictures of the previous films. And even that little moment when Adonis is watching the Creed Rocky match on YouTube on like his
Yes.
sector, and I'm like, he's me. He's watching the Rocky.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it would have been so easy for them to rest on their laurels and have him there as a kind of nostalgia bait or member berries, as they say. But the fact that they actually gave him a plot and he's brilliant, which we should never have doubted, really, because Stallone is in 99% of these movies. We don't talk about 5 a lot. But yeah, I just loved it. Every little bit. Like you said, little moments like the reference to feeling still guilty about what happened with Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago, and
Hmm.
still, one of the best scenes in the movie when he goes to the graves of Adrian and Paulie, and he's just kind of talking to them and what's new in the news today. It's getting harder to go up those steps, and you're just like, this is such a good performance. And people do not give Stallone enough credit as an actor because there's still too many people that think meathead, action film, Rambo kind of thing, and he's so much better than that, man.
Yeah, that was an important scene, for me, walking up there. And then, of course, we he's saying it's harder. I mean, these little hints to his health, and but he sits down with the newspaper, and he's so kind, and he's so funny in his own way. You know, the newspaper thing is interesting because he hasn't transitioned to technology. I mean, it's kind of in the Rocky movies that he is just a dude. He's not,
Yeah,
like he's not like an intellect or a reader, but he's got this heart and this gumption, and
yeah,
that's still who he is. I mean, he's there with his newspaper, and he brought alcohol, and he just, he
definitely.
loves to be there. Clearly, he goes there, and it was a great scene.
Yeah, I love that about Rocky though, that he's never portrayed as like dumb or the butt of the joke. It's just that he has his own knowledge, and like
Hmm.
when it comes to training Adonis, when he's giving him those, I love that scene because it's twofold. It shows you that like when it comes to training and boxing, he absolutely knows his shit. He knows what he's talking about. He gives him the full regime, breaks it all down. But then you also get that funny moment of like he just gives him the paper back because he's took a picture of it, and oh, don't you want to take this? What happens if your phone gets lost? It's already in the cloud.
Right, right.
He goes, what cloud? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that was funny.
Because it's also worth remembering he's not a young man at this point either.
Mhm.
That character, so
He isn't.
um, yeah. But yeah, we have to get into the sort of the idea that they give him this sort of cancer plot. Oh, it's
Mhm.
so well acted and so heartfelt. And like I said, I knew that he'd been through this on the other end because it's a large part of the film Rocky Balboa. So we knew that's what had kind of taken Adrian from him, and
Mhm.
that's when it sort of shows he's already visiting her grave before
Oh,
he lost Paul and
yes.
everything.
Yeah.
So I knew that, but then the fact that it's when he finds out, he literally breaks my heart when he's like, look, my wife went through that. It didn't do any good. And in the end, it just was worse for her. And I'd rather just not do anything. And you're just like, I fully understand where you're coming from, and it's devastating. There's not really much else you can say to that other than, again, such great dramatic chops on this actor that isn't given credit, really.
He really does. He really shines in this movie. I think it gave him probably an opportunity to show, that he has a range as an actor, that he is smart. The funny thing he said, like his timing is so great. That's one thing I noticed, is he just has this great timing, and how he said "unk's good" or whatever. Choosing between OG and Unk, and he's like, "Unk's good." I mean, it just seemed how it'd actually be.
Yeah,
Very natural.
yeah. And he's always been, that character has always been just likable, like the kind of person that even though they're fictional, you just imagine you'd get on with and you could grab a beer with or whatever, or just hang out with. And he would be nice. He's never ever seemed like an asshole in any way, and like I said, there's enough motivations that aren't made explicit as to why he would take on Adonis. Whether it's guilt or the fact that he obviously had that close relationship with Apollo, or whatever else, but the fact that they then do feel like they become that bonded as a family, and you do believe it, so that scene of them all together having dinner is, again, really just emotional and heartfelt. And you forget that there's not really that much shown of their bonding, but it's completely sold when he's like, yo, you're going to be a champion, Bianca, you're going to be great, your music's fantastic, and you're just like, yeah, I buy it. They are a family, which is why it hurts all the more when Donnie kind of tells them that they're not, and then it's that gut punch, but he doesn't take it personally because he gets that he is where Rocky was when he found out about Adrienne and whatever. So
yes, and he his emotions were high.
Yeah.
So exactly. I mean, yeah.
And I think again that's a key moment in the writing and the acting choices, whoever it is, where he says all those things and seems like rigid and calm about it, and then once Donnie's out of there, just says, "Oh, what did you do?" to himself.
Yeah, he knew that he had messed up.
Yeah. Exactly.
He knows, and he seemed almost not confused about why he did it, but just so disappointed in himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it wasn't planned; it just kind of happened that way, and then he thought in the moment it would be good, and then it just didn't. But yeah, I think you can see why, as I said, he was Oscar nominated. I think it's a great portrayal of like old age, of a kind of depression, but it's not. It's more sort of world weariness and just this sense of like loneliness and
loneliness. He's alone. Yes, that's one thing I really got out of this was his being alone. His son is in a different country. His wife is gone. His friend's gone. I mean, he has buddies that know him, but they aren't close.
Yeah, and I think it's partly as well, you can kind of get that he's just not letting them in because it's there in the dialogue of like, well, you never come down here and now you are with this kid kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Even when like Adonis first decides, just barges in and says, well, I'm going to live with you. We're going to train together. And you can see that like the house is like a shrine and it's not being touched and it's, his room and he just lives there on his own. And it's obviously not great for him. And it's a sad existence, I guess. But he's kind of fine with it. And even like you said, that's why it devastates all the more when he gets the diagnosis and he's like, I've got nobody left. I'm at peace with it. I realize I'm gone, but what have I got to live for, basically? And without that seeming maudlin or without it seeming like he's feeling sorry for himself, it's just a level of like, oh man.
Right. Live in Adrienne's restaurant. He's there, show him working. He's doing all hours of work. He's cleaning, but you don't ever see people in the restaurant.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You don't see him having funny conversations or talking about people's kids, even with the staff or anything. So I think that was, just another indication of how alone he is.
Yeah. And again, he doesn't even have he has like a bit of a love interest thing in Rocky Balboa, which is just come to nothing, and like so there's no real women in his life or anything. But I think it's an interesting counterpart to the like feel good nature of the boxing victory, is that you can kind of see them coming together as a family as well, and it mirrors it in a way of like, well, they come together, then they're knocked back by this situation, and then they do all kind of come together in the final sort of moments along with the final fight, and it is this found family, and I think that's important. It's a good part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good part of how they come together like that. That's a good point.
Yeah, completely. But yeah, as I say, just if you haven't seen it, the performance really is all that good, especially in scenes in the hospital. And my favorite sort of part of the plot of the movie, getting into that a little bit, which is, we're not supposed to be talking about that yet, but I always just mix and match. But when I first saw this movie and every other time since, I love that idea that somebody came up with, where Donnie just says, "Look, if I fight, you fight." And that's what sort of tips him over the edge into like, okay, I will go through the chemo and stuff, and it is only fair you're fighting and I'm fighting, and it's all shown in montage, but you get so much from just those little moments of like him struggling and him sitting but still training him, or being sick and then waking him up and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just so good.
Yeah, it really is good when he says that, because you know Donnie gave his California life up to come out there and start in Philadelphia with this inspiration. And Rocky's kind of always been part of his. I mean, I'm assuming right after uh, his mom's character started telling him about, you know, their past and his father's past, he had Rocky in his head. So he went
Well,
there,
you
you
see,
know.
because he watches that fight, as I said, on the big
Yeah.
screen, and you see
Well,
that.
and she told him she must have told him all the ins and outs of everything else that happened. So, I mean,
Yeah.
he gets there to Philadelphia and he has to kind of struggle. And so, Rocky appreciates that. And Rocky doesn't want to face that the end of his life is coming. He doesn't want to face this illness. Um, and they brought it together with that if I fight, you fight thing.
Yeah,
I
and
thought it
again,
was
I
well
think it
done.
was on a filmmaking level, it was so clever to have the traditional, like Rocky style, getting ready for the fight montage in terms of showing what Donnie's doing and the fight training, and then comparing that against Ricky Conlan's training. But then at the same time, as I said, having those scenes of Rocky's fight, which are completely different kind of thing, but it's
Yes.
personal victories of just getting up to the stairs one morning, or just surviving throwing up, or just sitting there and being able to talk to him,
That's
even
sure.
if he's just collapsed on a chair, at least he's there, he's in his corner or whatever.
That's
And
right. And he helped, like Michael. I mean, Johnny helps Rocky make it to the pot to throw up. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
he's helping him. They're helping each other physically, and they found each other just at the right time.
Yeah, which again is just, it's a beautiful thing in
It
terms
is,
of the
yeah.
script writing, and the idea
Mhm.
behind it is just, in this dumb boxing movie, it's just big, isn't it?
In this movie about relationships that has some boxing in
Exactly, yeah. But, yeah, I feel bad because I kind of like, we can't really talk to, and there is definitely a part of it that's to do with like the Black experience in America. I don't want to feel like I'm glossing over that. It's just that I can't speak to that. But obviously, in the characters of Donnie and Bianca in particular, it's like the two different sides of growing up in, as you say, LA or in Philly with money and not necessarily having money, and then their kind of connection with the worlds of hip hop and people of color in boxing and sports, things like that as
Yes.
well. So I'm very aware that there's a lot there, but as I said, I'm not really the qualified person to speak on that.
There is a lot there, and I'm also not qualified, but I did, I've heard the music all my life. I'm around the world of, basically Southern California life, and I've never been to Philadelphia, but in the first Rocky movie, there's all this people on the street corners singing. There's the bebop guys, and
Yeah.
there's the people that know him, and just such an homage to Philadelphia and bringing all the people. I mean, I loved the kids on motorcycles or on motorbikes or
I love that
their
scene.
own.
Yeah.
I just love that. Oh yeah, there's a scene. That's the scene where it got my first tears, was when he's running in the gray sweatsuit.
Yep.
Okay.
Hoodie,
Up
yeah.
a hill in a gray sweatsuit, with friends around him. So that was really motivating. I really liked it, but I can't speak to the Black experience, but it's definitely something familiar enough to me that I really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's so well done. You can kind of tell it's a Black filmmaker and I think writer as well who's involved in this, because it's like the culture is there and it's on.
Oh yes, I love that.
It's not like, oh, we've then got to go into a whole talk and we've got to make it about racism and we've got to then.
Right.
It's like, no, it's part of everyone's life. We don't need to pointed out. But
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
you're not going to make an NBA movie and not have
Yeah.
you're not going to bring Southern California, United States of America culture into it. You're just going to have that. You're going to have the music. I mean, even on the games that the 2K games that we play in my house, there's all kinds of hip hop and all kinds of, you know, music like that. And there's, it's just wonderful to see on screen these strong Black characters. I mean, Bianca's character is just so great, and even the guys making the sandwiches in Philly, you know,
I love that
those
guy.
I love the scenes. I love how he says he's going to treat him right. Like it felt very someplace I want to go, you know, and I just experienced. I loved that. I love that experience. I love all the boxers.
And I do love the fact that they say that the trainer is the son of Duke, who was Apollo's trainer as well in the original movie.
Right. Oh, I loved how I love the scene where he says, "I'm not training you."
Yeah.
He says, "I'm not training you." You know, he doesn't want to devastate that family again. He says, you know, accidents happen and I'm not training you. And basically, I'm not going to let other people train you. And so he's like, "Oh, really? Okay. See ya. I'm going to go meet my uncle. I'm going to go meet Uncle Rocky."
Exactly. Yeah. Just before I get off the subject, though, in terms of like Black culture and stuff, I would love to speak to somebody of color to see if I'm interpreting this the right way, but that's the way I read it, is the one key scene when Donnie's at his lowest because he's kind of like, he's pushed Rocky away with that "you're not my family." Bianca shut him out and he needs something to raise him up in that moment. And he's slumped on the floor. And then it's just a little black kid that walks by and just goes like, "Yo, you the son of Apollo Creed?" He goes, "Yeah." He just goes, "That's what's up." And it just seems to really perk him up. Like, yeah.
That was cool. I mean, I don't know if that's about race, but I feel
no, I don't think so. But I just feel like we don't really understand hearing that's what's up. It doesn't mean anything to us, but to him, it just feels like that was, you know, that was the perfect thing at that time, you know.
Also, this is just a kid on a bike.
Yeah.
And here he comes from. I mean, he literally bet his stang at the beginning, right? And
right.
You know, I mean, he grew up in this house with. I mean, we haven't talked about Felicia Rashad's part yet, but and then he sees this kid. This kid likes him. This kid isn't doing this thing with his life, and he gets, you know, hanging around all these other kids that instead of doing other things that people could do, they're riding motorcycles and bikes up this hill and being together doing that. And that I felt, you know, he went, and it was such a low point for him because she had said, "Nope, go away." And then the lock was on the gym.
Yeah.
But then there's this young man on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, "That's what's up."
Absolutely. And it's such a good moment. As I said, a little subtle thing where it doesn't like blare the music at you. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Those scenes work really well, but I also thought that was a great little moment. But yeah, we've kind of skirted around it, and I really have to say as well, massively underrated Felicia Rashad in this movie.
Oh, I mean, I wanted so much more of her, and I think David sent you something on Discord, you know, saying how great she was, and her part was just so integral to it, and she just those little scenes, you know, she it was great. I did want more of her too.
Oh, completely. I mean, from the very outset, when you learn that she's taken in this guy who's nothing to her, like it's her ex-husband who's now dead, illegitimate son, and yet she doesn't treat him as anything other than like her son.
Yeah.
And already you're just like, wow, I need to know more about this woman who's
she's really.
Like, can you imagine anybody doing that? You know?
No way.
But yeah, it's just so good. And then, as you said, the fact that she makes you feel every inch of when he sort of says he's going to try and make it and he's quit his job and whatever else. And you as an audience member are like, "Oh, come on, man," already. Right. And she's like, "Yo, if you're going to go in somebody's ring, just don't worry about calling me back." Again, which is implicit, but it is a gut punch. And it's kind of sad that she disappears for the majority of the film after that, even though you get the scenes of him trying to call and her not picking up. But again, talk about moments that bring you to tears is when he finds the little gift that he thinks initially is from Bianca and then opens it and it's his mom has sent him the kind of shorts, and it's just like, oh, what?
I know. He's sobbing on the floor. You know, he puts them on. He loves them. They fit him perfectly like a glove. Did you see?
And the fact, absolutely. The fact that they have both Creed and Johnson on them as well.
Yeah,
It's just
she's
like, oh,
amazing.
it's
Love
just the
it.
whole movie is literally like accept who you are and all sides of you, and you just get the sense that's his mother, like, yeah, I get it, that this is a part of you, but you'll still always be my boy, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, she came around. At first, she was like, "Hey, I don't want anything to do with boxing, so see ya." And
Yeah,
then she sent him these, and that was
yeah.
great. But
And it
one
was,
thing that you
sorry.
make me think of that one line where he asked Bianca, "Why do you make music?" And she says, "It makes me feel alive." And it's clear that the job he had at the financial place wasn't making him feel alive. And he's like, "I got to go back to what I love."
Yes.
Yeah.
I have that exact note and I skipped over it. And I'm pleased you
Oh,
mentioned that because I love the way that, again, the writing kind of threads those two stories together without making it
does yeah.
explicit, because he's like asking her when she says, "Why do you fight?" And then he sort of throws it back at her, "Well, why do you do music?" It's obviously the same. And she says, "It makes me feel alive." And then
Mhm.
even the key moment that when you find out about her progressive hearing loss and stuff, which
Yeah.
again is such a well-written idea to have into this movie because it's drama without feeling melodramatic. But
Mhm.
when he asks her, like, "So what are you going to do?" Because you're not going to be able to do this forever, and she just says, "Well, I want to do what I love for as long as I can." And you just see him
I
like,
mean,
"Shit, yeah, win or
right.
lose, I'm going to do what I love for as long as I can." It's as simple as that.
Right. Absolutely. And of course, that's why she plays the music loud. I mean, it all comes together. She's just a little mini Beethoven.
Yes, yeah. Oh, bless. I've never put that together, but that's actually a good analogy. Yeah, a little mini Beethoven. Yeah, the composer, not the dog. That's a different
Right.
matter. We've talked about it for probably a bit too long, but I only have one very last note on the acting, which is a small one, and it's to say that there's an actor in this who's like a character actor who I've seen in a few other things called Graham McTavish, and he
Oh, yeah. Love it.
he plays Ricky Conlon's promoter in this, and I was
Mhm.
like, it's a thankless, really small role, but he's so good in it because he has to
Yes.
sell so much. Like he has to sell to Conlon, "You've got to do this. It's great. I'm trying to keep you out of jail. I'm trying to look out for your kids and stuff."
Right.
You've also got to sell to Rocky and Adonis. "Yeah, this is the chance of a lifetime for you." So he's got to kind of, thread that needle as well. And he manages to keep all of these sort of disparate things. And then at the very end in the fight, you feel his exasperation when he's just like, "What are you doing? You should be killing this guy."
Yeah. He played an integral part. I mean, we learned that our pretty boy has kids and that he's saying, like, "Look, you're going away. You're
Yeah,
going away. What are you doing for your family?"
yeah,
And, we don't know how long he's going to have to serve his time for. We don't know how old his kids are, but just that one point he made to him, this is for your children.
yeah. I'm the one here trying to make sure your kids still have a roof over their head when you're.
Yeah.
It's
That,
like,
yeah.
wow, And
Right.
again, such a lot of information about that person's character, who's a nothing character in the movie, but it's right there in one line, and just kind of, he's got that responsibility because that's what trainers do. And then again, that reminds you of that's what Rocky is to Adonis as well. So naturally, that
Yeah, it
bond
is.
is there. So
Yeah.
awesome. And we should point out he is actually the guy who plays Ricky Conlon. Tony Bellew is, a real boxer. I think
I
his
love
acting kind of betrays that fact because as an actor, he's a great boxer.
Yeah, luckily boxers just need in the acting role just kind of need to look intense and
Yeah,
focused,
yeah.
and you have to have your head in the game, and they all did it very well.
Yeah. I did feel a little bit like he's the weak link in terms of whenever they're showing him doing the interviews with the sports channels or at the press conference and stuff. I'm just kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good job that the role that you're required to portray is just you, because you're still not doing a fantastic job at this. But saying that, he does kind of sell me with one of the best lines of the film, which I can't talk about yet, but we'll get into later.
Okay, looking forward to that.
But yeah, awesome. So I'll move on to the writing and the plot because we've again rambled for too long about that.
I like rambling.
Yeah, happily, especially about things that we enjoy. Spoiler alert.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, the first thing I have about the writing and the plot is I did think, if I'm being critical for 1 second, that it was very cliche that young Adonis was like, oh, he's always fighting in the care homes and everything. And I was like, oh, it's a little bit. I get it, but it still came off a little bit like, yeah, come on.
It did. Yeah, agreed.
But it's necessary and it doesn't dwell on it, so we'll forgive it, and at least it brings Felicia Rashad's performance in. I think I don't know if the film wants you to have no sympathy for him at first, but I struggled when it's just like, I'm just going to quit my job and walk away. And I'm just like, I hate in films when people do that. Like it's just that easy. Like, oh, I'll just quit my job, move away, I'll be fine. Like, you're on the streets, dude. So I didn't have the best of sympathies for him at first, but again, when you, I think that's the point. I get that, like I said, the whole film to me thematically is about claiming your heritage and the parts of you, and that starts with the kind of mixed message at the beginning when he hears about Apollo Creed and just goes, well, he ain't nothing to do with me at first, which is completely full circle by the end of the movie when it's like, no, you're wearing his shorts, you've got his name and everything. So yeah. Let's see. So yeah, because he doesn't even go by Creed, is it? He uses Johnson, and
right. Well, that's such an interesting point, if I may interject here.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
You remember Little Creed when he's talking and Felicia Rassad's character is there, and he said, what was his name? Because he didn't know his name. And then naming is a theme throughout the movie. He doesn't want to use that. He's very cautious about using his name. And that's one thing we learn is that he didn't even know his dad's name.
Yeah. Well, he didn't know who his dad was because his dad didn't want him, I guess, even though, as I said, there's that lovely moment at the end when they ask, what would you say to your dad? And he says, well, I know you didn't want to give me up. I know you still love me. And I understand, kind of thing, which is again, a level of acceptance for an internal trauma that's not made explicit, but
right.
Yeah. But yeah, I've kind of went on a runner with some notes here, so forgive me because I was putting this in the same place throughout, and I was like, every time, like they really do drum this into you because it comes up so many times that it's about claiming that name and that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not long after that until you get like, what is it? There's a news report from, I think it's HBO News Sports or something about, when they find out that he's a Creed, which he didn't want to say because he wanted to claim his own legacy or all those things that, people say. And then they literally say on the news report, ooh, will he damage the legacy of that name? And it's like, I get it. I get what you're saying. And I get that you're saying that's probably, a little bit what he's afraid of, as much as he might not claim it. And then, like I said, immediately straight from that, you get Conlon saying, I don't want to fight him. He's just a name. He hasn't earned it. Doesn't deserve this shot. Right. But then, it's a trainer being like, well, he's a sure thing. And, need to keep a roof over your kids' heads. And again, Bianca, as we said, being the character that kind of sees everyone and calls through everyone's BS, is the one that's like, you say you don't want anything to do with him, but you literally are just trying to channel him through Rocky. That's the whole point that you went to him. So, yeah. And he does say eventually when he admits it, I'm afraid of taking the name and losing, and then gets told, well, it's yours. It is yours. It's your name. Again, beautiful ones. And, in the press conference, again, they make it very explicit with, you're a false Creed. Nice shorts, boy. Too bad your daddy isn't here to fight at them when he gets the shorts as well. And then, again, I just love the glib response by Rocky of like, you're going to close his big mouth after he says that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, that's the fact that leads to the turnaround at the end of the fight. And as I said, that kind of key, again, which I can't talk about yet, but I'll get to it, that kind of key moment when he gets told, your dad will be.
Yeah.
So, I love that. So, that's what I had about that, the kind of theme of claiming your legacy in your own name and finding out who you are, which, again, probably ties into the kind of Black culture part of things, I suppose, as well, of like, a lot of people might not know their true African names or whatever, so there's a little hint of that there sprinkled in, which shouldn't be ignored, perhaps. But, did you pick up on all of this throughout the movie as well? Or?
I definitely got the naming thing, the true name and everything.
And again, on a larger thematic level, even his name being Adonis, his father being Apollo, they're both named after kind of Greek gods, aren't they?
Right. Yes.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And the arrogance of Apollo, though. I mean, I'm just glad they didn't have him, have Adonis all of a sudden come in all showy the way that.
You didn't want him dancing to Living in America?
Oh, geez. Oh, that's so. I remember the first time I saw that, and I'm going, oh, no, please. This is so. And that big, huge Uncle Sam hat. Oh. It'd be a funny outtake, though, right? But still, drop the.
I love that
Huge.
moment in that movie. I just love
Oh,
that
I
because
know. Of course, it was also, Cold War stuff and everything
oh, yeah.
political involved, so that's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, completely, yeah. And I'd love to record it someday. Maybe I will. But yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. 'Cause that's when I first joined the military, the
Really? Rocky
American
Horror era.
military, that
Wow.
during the Cold War. So yeah, I'm in.
Wow. So you saw Apollo Creed giving the old, your country needs you, and we're like, yeah,
Uh,
okay,
oh yeah.
I'll do it, Apollo, for you.
I think I mentioned this before on another podcast that it was just coincidence that I went in like 3 months before Top Gun, the first movie, came
All
out,
right.
and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden the whole world's joining the Navy, and I'm like, oh come on now, come on, bandwagon.
You didn't need Tom Cruise to tell you
I
to
didn't need
do
no Tom Cruise F-14 thing. Anyway.
it. I should say as well that I forgot to bring this up earlier in the notes, but it's very telling that we finally, after all this time, find out who won that behind closed doors Rocky Creed third fight from the
Yeah.
end of Rocky 3.
Mhm.
It's so daft, but I'm not sure if I like that it's actually revealed because I loved the fact that that was always a mystery. It like freeze framed at the end of the movie, and it was.
Mhm.
But saying that, this movie is all about Creed and his legacy, so giving that win to him, yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. It makes
Although
sense.
part of me still thinks like, is he telling the truth? Because like Creed's dead, he can't really refute it. And if his son comes
True,
to you, you're
yeah.
not going to be like, who won the fight? I did. I kicked his ass.
Oh. Oh, reverse psychology on Rocky's behalf. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So to my mind, it's still quite mysterious because you still don't necessarily know if he's telling the truth. Anyway, I wanted you to talk a little bit about this because it was the first thing you mentioned after watching the movie is the first date with the sort of Philly cheesesteak. And you asked me if I'd ever had one. I haven't, by the way. But I was just wondering why that scene specifically grabbed you and what you liked about it.
You mean when they go to the authentic restaurant that she plays it? Oh, because it's a very regional. It's sort of like maybe a pastrami sandwich or something here, but I'm sure you have things in your area that just are regional. But it was the word I was used was legit. It was a legit scene. You walk in, these guys definitely look like they actually do this, and they're doing it on the grill with those metal chop, 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 chop. And she's like, okay, we need both kind of peppers. So like she knows it's got to have both kind of peppers on it. She said, I think she said ketchup. It's so American.
Yeah, got you. So yeah, and as I said, I got a bit of that with like recognizing Adrienne Park in England when they were there.
Yes, yes.
I know it's not far from where I live. So yeah, you're saying that.
I feel like no matter what, I'm in Los Angeles. Nobody is going to tell me I've ever had a real Philly cheesesteak. They'll say, well, you got to go there. Or like a Chicago pizza thing. I mean, or like a Texas barbecue versus North Carolina barbecue. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it just really seems like Philly is a place for cheesesteak. And that made me, of course, want one. So I feel like we all need to go there.
Yeah, let's just organize a trip to Philly. Sure. It's not something that really ever made it over here, the whole idea of the cheesesteak. So I don't think we've even got like fake versions or like lower class versions or anything. It's just
that's funny.
But yeah, I thought one of the reasons you might have hooked onto that scene is that it's just such a genuine, cool first date, and a lot of the kind of key moments of the movie come in there when he's talking to Bianca and he's explaining that only knowing the bad swear words.
That's true, and that's same here. When I first learned Spanish, when I was a little girl growing up with other kids that speak Spanish around you, that's what I can remember. I can still say 2 of the bad words, and that's all.
I love that she teaches him the sign language for bullshit, and
that was funny.
She doesn't just see it; it's the sort of subtle way of like, get it? That's a bull. That's the horns, and then duh. So it's like, yep, I get what you're saying. Yes.
Exactly, and foreshadowing later in their relationship, however long it goes, she ain't putting up with none of this BS.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely, and then as I've already said, the comparing the way they feel about their passions is key to both characters, isn't it? So
yeah.
Awesome. I can't remember exactly when this comes in, but it must be after that in terms of that's where it is in my notes. But again, a lovely, powerful moment is when Rocky has started training Donnie, and he's in front of a mirror and just points at that and goes, "That's your toughest opponent." Yes. Like yourself. Like, yeah, I love the kind of, Instagram quotes that you can get from these Rocky movies because, yeah, you can argue they're cheesy or whatever, but they're bloody true as well. So it is, yeah, you've got to conquer the hardest opponent, which is yourself.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because when I was watching that, I said, that's kind of how I feel right now with my youngest son. He's going through really tough courses in high school, college type courses. He just got put on the varsity basketball team. Like I'm thinking, and sometimes he procrastinates his homework. So I'm like, you have to teach yourself time management. You're one you have to really fight against because he wants to be here on this computer.
Yeah.
So it works in all kinds of things. It would work in any sport. It works real. And it seemed like he could also be talking to him as a young actor.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely.
It seems so legit. Yeah.
Again, there's another moment that I think it's so universal in this movie about boxing, and whether it's the writer or it was a Stallone ad lib or whatever. But I love when he kind of goes to answer him back, Donnie, and Rocky just goes, "Yo, you can't learn anything talking. If you're talking, you're not listening."
Yes, what a meme!
Brilliant life.
Yes, I bet you there's a million Creed memes, and I haven't even been using any yet. Got to get out there, and I need the Google machine.
But I love that. I'm like, I hope there are some teachers watching this movie that take that and use it against kids that are mouthing off in school and stuff. Because like that is, or like parents that are just like, yo, if you're talking, you can't listen, you can't learn anything.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. I love that, and I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
Because as I've said sort of earlier, Rocky, this guy that is portrayed as a little bit not always the smartest, is like in a lot of ways he's the smartest of them all. He's given this like world advice.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that. And again, speaking of that, the idea of, one step at a time, one punch at a time, one round at a time, that just repeats throughout, which again is, it echoes through so much, not just in terms of like mental battles with depression or with Rocky's battle that he faces, and then the obviously training and everything. But I'm like, yeah, that's one of those things that you can have as like a mantra, simple as it is, but it's great. I like it.
It is. And it suits so many parts of our lives, doesn't it? Like even Alcoholics Anonymous. One day at a time, 1 minute at a time, like those kind of things. So he really does well teaching focus.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And as you said, it even comes up later, doesn't it? When they're climbing the steps at the very end and, he's not letting Rocky give up, even though it is obviously exhausting. He's recovering from treatment and stuff. And he's like, yo, one step at a time. And that gets literally.
Exactly. Right. And remember at the very beginning of Rocky, he couldn't make it all the way up those. The first time he goes,
and he runs up, and that's exactly why the statue is like him. At the top, it's in the
and now he goes back. Now that's when he was in his prime, and now as his life, as he's aging, he can't make it all the way up.
Yeah, and again, this is I'll bring it up now because it just came into my mind now. But it's what you were saying about like Stallone and Rocky's comedic timing, because that's one of the moments is when he says, "I'm sure they've added a few more stairs."
Yeah, that's comedic. Or like when he says, chickens must be getting slower.
I was just gonna say that was exactly I was gonna bring up when he catches the chicken, he's gonna rock punished. It's like, the chickens must be getting slower.
Oh yeah, it's obvious. It's clearly these young chickens. Yeah, chickens these days they're just not as fast.
I love that because it's like grumpy old man, but in the best way, Awesome, love it. But in regards to that, because this kind of links to conveniently a note that I made, which I hadn't realized in this way, that like the film has that kind of cheeky sense of humor at times. So that after his first fight, when Adonis has won and he's like celebrating and he's like, "What are we doing after this? Yay!" And they say something like, "We can go find a party or whatever." And then the movie just cuts and they're all just asleep on the couch. Completely wiped out.
Exactly.
Yep, you have that adrenaline rush you think you can take on the road, but as soon as
let's go dancing all night, right? Let's go down to Hollywood. Nope.
Yeah, it's in just really good dialogue where the moments come up, like making up with Rocky took a lot. And yet when he says, like, if it was anybody else in my corner, I wouldn't do it, meaning take the Conlon fight. And you believe that, you're like, yep, I can kind of see exactly where you're coming from. And that's the biggest compliment you could give him.
You do. It's a trust relationship. It really came through that there is trust.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked more or less about some of the other things. The scene in the jail was really powerful, but I think that's the strength of that is the acting that I've talked about. The film isolating Donnie at his lowest, but then having him rise up in the little ways that we mentioned, the little kid on the bike and such. And yeah, that's what's up. And then that's it, really. I think, yeah, that the writing just repeats a lot of the stuff that I had already gotten at. Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. It could have been potentially really convenient and dodgy, and I normally wouldn't like this. That after Bianca's kind of effectively broken up with him, we should do our own thing. She just turns up in that way. Obviously, you have the funny scene with Rocky, as we talked about. Comedic timing when he's like just looking at the door.
That was funny.
What are you doing? What's going on? What are you? Yeah. And it's just timing,
But and he knew. He knew that they needed to have each other. He knew. Rocky knew that he had to go get her and bring her there. He knew what was going on.
Again, I believed that, even though I would normally be like, "Oh, you're convenient. The girlfriend's just completely forgiven you and whatever else." But it's believable. And yeah, I think that was more or less everything. Did you have any other notes about the writing or the general plot in the movie?
Nope. Good on both. Great, good and wonderful on both parts, as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. Yeah, fair enough. So then I just have a few notes about the direction. If you're again happy for me to take the lead and just spring off that, maybe.
Absolutely.
I've already talked about, it's good seeing effectively Donnie watching Rocky 2, I think it is, Rocky and Apollo's second fight, because we can already identify with him that way. Like, yeah, he does what we do. So I appreciated the director having that moment of watching, the film within a film. And there's a lot of moments, I think, that are the meta version of that, where the film is paying respect to its Rocky legacy without feeling like a copy. So the arrival montage in Philly with the kind of cool song on it is one moment where I was like, yeah, this is very Rocky, and yet it's got its own identity by using like the hip hop music and stuff. So I appreciate that. I thought it was really clever the way they used actual channels like HBO Sports or ESPN, etc., to show like the actual boxing part, to get that exposition out of the way and just conveniently done with. So you didn't have to dwell too much on it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love Max Kellerman being there.
Oh, right. It means nothing to me, not being an American. But
well, from if you want me to speak on it a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, so just from where I'm from, Los Angeles, there's just so many sports teams. And so, besides the Dodgers and the Lakers and the Clippers, I mean, now there's soccer and all kinds of other, the LA Galaxies here, and there's so much sports. So we have, probably like you do, a sports radio channels, numerous AM and FM, and
we have TV channels and everything. Yeah.
Actually, we have TV too. But, but driving in the car, just growing up here, you listen, which channels are sports channels, and I've listened for years. And sometimes it's a nice break to just listen to sports radio. And Max Kellerman's often on here. I'm sure he's on across country, but I don't know. But he's just an expert on sports, and he's worked with a lot of people, and he's been on TV recently. But it's well known that even though he knows everything about the Lakers and the Dodgers, like he knows all the stuff, but he is well known as that his sport is boxing. That's his thing. So it floored me the first time through, and I'm like, oh, Max Kellerman. I mean, and it worked out for me, because he'll always say, I know boxing, hey, and even in boxing, this happens and this happens. So he's popular, he's smart. It just seemed like a good person, but it was just great to see him in the movie.
I see what you mean. You've helped kind of quantify the point that I was trying to make, which is that it's good that they use real things as well to do that, like the actual channels and presenters and stuff that exist. Right. It's not like, oh, this is channel 6 or whatever, and it's just made up.
And the narrator from the HBO special on Conlon, that's the guy that does the real sports shows.
I figured it would be,
that's our guy. He does tells the stories, and that's the voice. It's very distinctive. I wish I had written down his name, but
I don't know, but we can look it up, audience.
Callback. We have to do a callback on it.
Awesome. This is a bit of a sad thing. I probably should have put this in the behind the scenes thing, but I did read that when they first go to Rocky's house, there's a picture of Rocky's son, and it is actually Rocky's real life son who he just lost around the time of making this movie.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Which was really sad. It was like a heart condition or something.
Yeah.
And for a while, Stallone was apparently like reluctant to make the movie, but has said that the experience of making it helped him deal with that grief, which is a lovely thing. I really appreciate that on a human level. But he didn't choose to have that image there. It was Ryan Coogler who insisted on having little Robert Stallone somewhere in the movie. And when I heard that, I was just in tears. I was just like, that is such a sweet little tribute moment as well. And it's just really, oh, bless. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that scene hits very hard when you know that, when Donnie's like, oh, who's that? And then he picks the image up and you can you see the real, I think, affection there from Stallone when he's like, that's my son. And then has to go and obviously talk about, oh, we don't talk and he lives elsewhere. And the fictional version of his son, but it's there, I think, anyway. So, on a lighter note, I love the way that the training montages literally kind of ramp up with the film. So to me, I thought the first montage with Rocky was a little bit flat. It didn't seem like there was as much energy and stuff going into it, but it literally gets, every time you see them training, it seems like it's more and more intense.
Right. Yeah. And the jumping rope part, especially, because didn't Rocky struggle with it?
Yeah.
In the first movie. So he has to, the jumping rope just gets so much better. And I love the part where they're doing the, I'm sure there's an official word for it, but that little boxing bag. I love what they're doing that together.
Yeah. The punch bag. Oh yeah.
Punch bag, yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually a punch bag. I know what you mean. It's one that hangs from the ceiling. I forget.
Right, I can't remember the name of it, but and it's funny because I feel like it's another one of those spontaneous moments because Sylvester Stallone grabs the bag that the other bag and like pretends to stop because he gave up. Like a contest. It was funny.
It's good. Yeah, just real moments. It is. It's great. Yeah. On a filmmaking level, because I'm supposed to be talking about direction, there's a lot of cool tracking shots that are done in one. And the two main ones are when he first goes to the gym, the camera follows behind Donnie and Rocky the entire way up the stairs in one shot, right the way around the ring and everything, which is just gorgeous to look at. And related to that, when he first goes into the ring at Goodison Park, it does exactly the same. It tracks Creed from the dressing room right the way through the kind of entry area and whatever into the actual ring, right around the ring. It comes around the back of his head to show his front of his face and how he's feeling.
Beautiful camera work. And you can kind of even feel the claustrophobia when you're going up the stairs in the gym. Yeah,
and I think that's the point, is that you can almost get that sense of like this is his point of view in a way without getting overly cheesy with it. So it's like, you are going there with him. And it's also handy in the last shot that it also shows the scope and scale of how many people are in the crowd. Because obviously as it pans around, you're just like, and they're all cheering for Conlon at that point. So you're like, that must be intimidating. Fair enough. I don't know why I've got this in direction, but I did kind of love that, the moments of Creed, don't call me that, when he's calling him baby Creed. I'm trying to show you respect, and then they're getting into a fight. And because again, I don't really know whose side I'm with that. Like, I don't blame Adonis for acting the way that he did, but he also did definitely escalate things more than he needed to in the initial phase, if you know what I mean.
But could you have walked away from a stranger saying that that's a way to get whatever he said about his dad?
Yeah, I was like, he's in the wrong right the way until he hears what is it? You'll get a VIP pass next to your dad in the ground talking like that or something.
Right. And could you have,
at that point, I would have flagged him. Yeah. Awesome. I don't really know what else to say. I like seeing, as I said, Felicia Rashad watching the fight on TV and just the little subtle things in the performance. Like when he calls out, it's from my mom, I hope you're watching. And she's like, you give me a heart attack, but I love you. Something like that. It's really good. I love that, again, this is just all information about the fight, which applies to like every Rocky movie, but I do love it the way that it's like, it's a psychological battle as much as it is a physical one. So, and they say that it's in the commentary, but it's like, you've got to survive the round. You've just got to not get too worn down and, bring the fight to him, and he'll get shocked because you're supposed to be a sure thing. And and there's even the dialogue, it's you against you out there from the commentators. And I'm like, yeah, we all heard Eye of the Tiger. We know the line.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the way that it shows like montages of blood splashing to show the passing of rounds and stuff, so clever. And when Creed's down, again, it could and perhaps should be cheesy, but the like life flashing before his eyes when it's prompting him to get up, because otherwise he'd have been timed out, obviously, given the 10 count. And it's like,
I loved that. Okay. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, and this was such a cool little clever moment that I think I didn't notice the first time I watched the movie. But like when they're trying to see if he can carry on with the fight, and they've obviously cut the like black eye and whatever else. But he still clearly can't see all that well. So it's like, how many fingers am I holding up? And you see that Rocky's behind him tapping that number of fingers on his neck, so he doesn't have to actually see.
Now, was it Rocky tapping the numbers, or was it the guy doing the count, holding the fingers up? Because wasn't there a glove, or was it Rocky?
Oh, it was. I don't know if it was necessarily Rocky, but it was someone that's in Adonis's corner.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be. Yeah.
The referee was showing the numbers, and they were just like, yeah. 3.
Yeah.
So I was like, I get that. I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And again, just like the first Rocky, I love that it's kind of a split decision, but that he doesn't have to win. It's not about that. It's the moral victory. Could have necessarily done without the actual hallmark pointing that out of, Conlon wins the fight, but Creed wins the night. I was like, yeah, we know. You didn't. That's, you don't need that dialogue to point it out to us. We're aware that's the point.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But again, just lovely moments in dialogue when Rocky says, you taught me how to fight again. I want you to fight too. I want to prove I'm not a mistake. And this is all that last fight.
That whole thing about a mistake, because clearly he was just maybe one night stand. You don't even know, like, how long did Apollo know his mother? Yeah. Did they really have any feelings? I mean, and that's when he said just a mistake, I was like, oh, that's interesting writing. Are they saying he's a mistake to have left his job and to go into boxing? Or was he, as a human being,
I think
created as a mistake?
Says, I want to prove I'm not a mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of struck me for a moment. I'm like, oh, that's kind of heavy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The whole the idea of the crowd switching from chanting the other guy to chanting Creed, it's been done in the Rocky films before, but it's still cool. I like it. It's a sweet moment.
Well, it is still cool, and it's for this generation of watchers.
Yeah. True, I suppose.
Yeah, it's for this generation. They maybe if they haven't seen the Rocky movies, they're like, oh, did you hear that? Oh, did you hear they changed sides? I mean, that'd be a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the other thing that I had. Again, dialogue at the end where they say something along the lines of, oh, you've got Rocky Balboa calling you family. What does it mean to you? And he just responds like, it means I'm a lucky guy. And then, as I mentioned earlier, like, what would you say to your father? I would just say, I understand. I love you. And
I know. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Died. And then, just the very last sort of note on direction that I have, it is really fantastic that they end on those famous steps and, emphasizing both of the battles, and that's when the kind of Gonna Fly Now Rocky theme kicks in, and
right.
A wise man told me one step at a time. Who told you that? Some old guy.
It was interesting to me because I felt like that is exactly how it would go. You would at some point you would drive by a place with your nephew or your niece when you're older, and you would say, hey, this is where I was born, or you would show them parts of your life. And when they did it this way, it wasn't melodramatic. It wasn't this huge moment. It was just like a normal part of their day. I'm going to show, let's walk up these steps. I mean, it wasn't overdone. I liked it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that it was literally the last shot in the film, because I think it makes it more powerful saving it for that, and making the last shot of the film, those two looking over in that triumphant pose, almost like looking over the whole of Philadelphia. And I was like, yep, that's a fantastic last shot of your movie, really, isn't it? So
great way to end.
Absolutely. I have the grand sum of one note about visual effects, because it's not really that kind of movie, but I did have just on that I appreciate the genius idea that somebody had of putting all of the fighters' stats on the screen as we meet them.
I really, really like that. I really like that, because then people are like, oh, this is for real. Like these, I really love that, those images like that, and that paused and put them on there. And the first watch through, I thought that was great.
I love it, because it saves so much time of having to have a character in there saying this is such and such. He's had 16 fights, 6 knockouts. He's undefeated and whatever. And it gets it all out the way like that. And yet it is all information that the character has to have. So it gives the audience like, this guy is intimidating.
Yeah, that's right.
This is going to be a tough one or whatever. But it's just
I appreciated that. Yeah.
Definitely. So do you have any other quick notes on like directing or the general VFX, if any?
No, I didn't. I had something about the product placement. I thought, wow, they really put a lot of stuff in there. I noticed that it was interesting because, like, in America, they do a lot of beer, a lot of beer placement.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me that the placement I saw mostly was for Tecate beer, which is, of course, a Mexican beer. And the first fight he had was in Mexico.
Because that's how he kind of.
And so I appreciated that it was sort of bringing back, maybe I missed the Budweiser stuff because I blocked it out.
No,
or
I didn't.
But I noticed Tecate. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool because it's again, kind of a Southern California.
That's the whole point, is that it's not on his official record, but he has fought multiple fights in Mexico unofficially, as he said.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
No. The only product placement I noticed is that they weren't shy of showing like sports brands, which is very rare. So I think it was when he's first talking to Bianca and he kind of thinks he's blown it, or perhaps when she shuts the door on him, he turns around and he's wearing a Nike shirt or something, and the logo is so blatantly visible. And I'm like, I wonder how much they paid you to feature.
All right, there's the Michael Jordan jump man in one of the shots, and I was like, oh boy, that's
that's not filmmaking, isn't it? You're gonna go forgive him.
Classic 2015.
So the last thing that I have any notes on then is just the sound and the music. And again, I'm not really an expert, but I had found some information, so I'll just spout it out if you don't mind.
Spout away.
The musical score for this was written by Swedish composer Ludwig Göransson, who we know from various other things, including The Mandalorian for the first couple of seasons.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a really good composer. He's only the third composer in the history of the Rocky series, following Bill Conti, who did Rocky 2, 3, 5, and Balboa, and Vince DiCola, who did Rocky 4. So yeah, very signature sound. Creed also features a soundtrack, as we mentioned, that consists mostly of music new to the series, including hip-hop tracks by artists like Future, Meek Mill, and White Dave. One tribute to Conti's original soundtrack is included. The track You're a Creed uses both Gonna Fly Now and Going the Distance, which are both sort of musical tracks from, I think, Rocky 1 or maybe 2, but both Bill Conti tracks. So yeah, awesome. Any other last thoughts before we go into favourite character moment or line then, Adrienne?
No, yeah, we're good.
Awesome.
Keeping on.
We'll do that then, and then I'll jump to the audience response, and then we'll finish with our kind of conclusion and score out of 5. So I'll come to you first as the guest. Who was your favorite character in the movie and why?
I just love Sly Stallone's character. I really love Rocky. I just think it's mostly about him, and what's happening in his life and what he's doing for others and how he was isolated and came out and how he feels his strength. But, he needs somebody, and that somebody is not even a blood relative. I mean, I just think they really did this movie well. I think he definitely deserved that Golden Globe award. And I just think his little Rocky classic funny timing of little comments is really made me actually laugh a couple times, and that felt good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm pleased to hear that you enjoyed it as somebody that wasn't necessarily like rooting to watch it as well. So, in terms of my favorite character, I'm cheating for the first time because I tried and I can't choose between Adonis and Rocky in this movie because they both have such strong storylines. I could easily have went with Bianca as well, but it would be silly starting to go into that area. But yeah, those two are clearly the focus, but I wanted to kind of go with Rocky, but felt like it's not giving Adonis his due. And towards the end of the movie, I really was feeling his journey and the idea of earning your place in the world, your name and everything. So I was like, I can't pick between those two, so I'll have to pick two. So yeah, for me, it's Adonis and Rocky are my favorite characters.
There you go. Well, they're very parallel, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, literally, you fight, I fight is right. The point. Yeah. Awesome.
We could call them Radonis.
Rocky Creed. But yeah, so what was your favorite moment or scene in the film then?
Well, I'd still say the chicken thing of running. Like I chose a humorous spot.
Okay, that's good.
I love that, but I also like the spontaneous uh, cheesecake
Oh, the right.
song he made. The st- Philly cheesesteak cheesecake part. I liked. I like how they had that little toy piano. I thought that was
Yeah,
really. They didn't have
it's
to have that in
wonderful.
there. A lot of musicians play around with those, so
Of
she's
course.
doing interesting stuff. I like that scene.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I think we've emphasized there's literally so many scenes we could have picked.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to be like obvious and yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the final fight. It is what everything builds to, as it is with all the Rocky movies. But that's not to say there aren't equally brilliant scenes all the way through. Just that was the point where I was like, because that is the focus. It's what you're heading towards. That was that I really where I was really the most engaged. So yeah, but do
Hmm.
watch the film. There's lots of other great scenes. So yeah, finally, what was your favorite line in the movie?
The chicken line. Chickens are getting slower. That made me
Okay,
actually laugh a
okay,
lot. But I love the motivation stuff that made me think about how I could use that with my own family. About how you're your own. Basically, you're your own worst enemy. You're fighting yourself. I
Hmm.
love that. Yeah.
There's lots of that. There's a great whole speech in Rocky Balboa, which is about that. Nobody's going to hit harder than life, and it's all over
Hmm.
the internet, so you can probably find it. It's a meme 1,000 times over at this point, but yeah. So yeah, my favorite line then, as I've kind of alluded to throughout, is from Conlon at the end of his fight with Creed, where he just says, "You're the future of this division. Your daddy would be proud." Because that
Oh
really, the
yeah.
very first time I watched this movie, and again probably every time since, that was tears to the eye moment of like,
Mm.
that's your vindication. That's your actual kind of like, oh yes, you found yourself. Yeah, Michael Jordan, great actor. So, and yeah, as I said, that even for a not great actor, the Tony Bellew, the boxer, he sold that line for me, and it was very emotional. So that was what I would go with. So,
Yeah. Good choice.
we're going to jump ahead to the audience interaction then, and then we'll get onto our scores, if that's okay with you,
Hmm.
Adrienne.
Hmm.
Um, if you're new to us, we always put out like on social media a little prompt to ask what other people thought of this movie. As I said, not a lot of people had seen it, so there's not a ton of responses, but I found a few, including Adrienne's husband, David. Thank you again, David, for doing that. We were short on responses, so it was good to hear from somebody who saw the movie. You can reach us to do that, by the way, on all social medias. We are no longer on Twitter, but you can find us on Mastodon, Facebook, Instagram, or, as I say, if you ask on our social medias or send us a private message, you can join our Discord, which is a great and welcoming place for all. So, with that out of the way, then, Creed. On Discord, Christian's hobby blog said, I thought it was a great send up to the original series. Some aspects didn't work as well, like the instant romance between Creed and his girlfriend. I have to disagree there. I loved the internal struggles that Creed had trying to be his own person instead of being under the shadow of his dad. Michael B. Jordan's acting was really great in this movie too, and the ending shot where he runs up the same steps with older Rocky that Rocky did 40 years or so ago was a great ending. Just to throw in my thoughts for Creed 2, because why not? I thought it was slightly unnecessary and felt fan servicey. I hope the third brings back the strengths of the original Creed. Again, I have to slightly disagree, but appreciate your opinion. That's fine. Um, Over on my friends on Letterboxd, someone called Robert, who is a patron, sorry, I don't have your surname, gave the film 4.5 stars and says, one of my favorite theater experiences, such raw emotion in that theater, a lot of onions being peeled. Stallone not winning that Oscar is a travesty. um, Also on Letterboxd, Alec Greer gave it 5 stars and says, one of 2015's grandest achievements, along with Inside Out, Mad Max Fury Road, Bridge of Spies, and The Martian. Man, that was a great year for film. Um, Paul Denuzio on Letterboxd, PLD, said, I watched with the wife and she was sucked in, so now I have a date to Creed 2. I thought this time, what a great decision to hold back on the Rocky music until the most climactic moment. It could have been overused, and that would have been really a detriment to overuse it. But by holding back and having it come in full force after the most emotional moment of the film, it just totally hit it out of the park. I cry like a child every time during that moment. Thank you, PLD. And Marion on Letterboxd gave it 5 stars as well and said the fact that this movie only got one Oscar nomination is a crime. Okay. And I think the final ones, okay, over on Mastodon at Goku54 says, I liked both Creed 1 and 2, pretty good successors to the Rocky franchise. And finally, the aforementioned information from David, Adrienne's husband, on Discord who says, when the first Creed came along too many years ago now already, I was intrigued. The premise of bringing Apollo's lore back into the world of Rocky got my attention. Seeing Sylvester portray all the warmth, depth, and never-ending love he has for those closest to him, Apollo's family, etc., was greatly appreciated. But after that fell away and the story shifted to the standard issue disgruntled, abandoned son, I was like, well, I've seen this script 1,000 times, and predictability set in, and the side stories just weren't enough to excite me to run to the sequels upon release, etc. Although I will say Felicia Rashad was a scene stealer, would have liked to see more of her and her backstory after Apollo's death. Overall grade, soft B. Michael B. Jordan does a solid job, but it felt forced at times. Sylvester was excellent as Rocky as usual. He is low-key underrated as an actor in dramatic themes, in my opinion. This can be seen in his new show, getting solid reviews as well, Tulsa King on Paramount+. Thank you for that feedback. And slight plug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well done, David.
We see that I definitely agree with certainly large parts of it. Not so much with not like loving the film and not running out to the sequels, but definitely when it comes to Stallone being an underappreciated, brilliant dramatic actor, I think we can both agree with that. And
Yeah,
I think you probably would as well, Adrienne. Yes.
absolutely.
Awesome. So, again, you're the guest, so we'll come to you first if you don't mind. Do you have a conclusion and a score out of 5 stars for us?
I'm going to give it a 4 stars. It really, I'm actually looking forward to watching the sequel now since I watched this one so many times. I just loved the music. I couldn't believe it when Hail Mary by Tupac came on. I was like, okay, that's my generation. I'm going to turn this up. And I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to give it 4.
Awesome, cool. Apologies, my conclusions sometimes seem a bit rambly because I just have them all written out. But
ramble on, love it.
I will say I was kind of in a bit of a down mood when watching the movie. I don't know why. I was just feeling a bit tired, and I'd already seen a not very good movie that day. So that may have affected my viewing at first, in particular, because the film to me seemed a bit slow paced and sluggish for the first hour. As I say, I'm not sure if that is true or if it is my mood, as I kind of fought to get into the mode to watch the movie. Honestly, though, I can say that there's some key great scenes in there. At any other time, I'd probably applaud that. In any case, the last hour more than makes up for it, even not initially feeling it. The complete wow factor totally won me over. The film is a very worthy entry in a franchise that I love, which employs the key tropes and ideas, but it does so cleverly, and it never seems like it's repeating cliches. The themes of legacy, fighting together, family, and more are brilliantly handled. There's outstanding performances, deft writing, masterful direction, great music, and like all Rocky films, a build up to an ending that can't fail to get you pumped up and feeling it. The dramatic parts are more than worthy of the best of the Rocky films too, that being 1, 2, and 6 in my opinion, with a realistic and engrossing story and characters who just feel real and make you care. Maybe I'm biased because I love this franchise, but I do think that it's also a brilliant movie. And again, I implore you, please see it if you haven't. A lot of people on Letterboxd, when I was searching for mutual friends reviews, had given it 5 stars. And there was a lot of high praise for the movie. So please watch it if you haven't.
Mhm.
But in this instance, with everything considered, I also went 4 stars out of 5.
Nice.
So the average is going to be, so difficult to work out. What is the average of?
I don't know. This is hard math for me here.
So no, the podcast would therefore say Creed 4 out of 5, which is a solid, very good score. Yeah, can't really argue with that. And I think we would both definitely see it. Recommend, though. Do watch.
I recommend this movie. I do. I recommend it to anybody. Anybody can watch this movie and anybody will enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, and I am so looking forward to seeing Creed 3 in the cinema. My brother wants to come with me as well, so enjoy.
Well, no, it's Sylvester Stallone in it?
He's not. It's the first one he's not in, unfortunately. But he said, it's time to hand the franchise over.
Okay.
If you haven't seen the trailer, I would recommend watching it because it gives you all of the backstory that you need of what it's about, which I don't think spoil outside of that, and it kind of gets you thinking, "Ooh, I'm intrigued what you're doing here." It's a very Rocky-ish story between Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Major's characters, and it's obviously a very personal story as well as then culminating in, well, you're going to have to fight each other, So. Yeah, I love the look of it. I think it's going to be great. As I say, I don't think there's been a bad Rocky movie, but again, the aforementioned 5 is probably
yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Never mind. So no, that's great. Well, again, thank you so much for agreeing to jump in and take part in this one, Adrienne, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. So thank you for staying.
It was a great time. I'm willing to watch movies I hadn't thought about before. So hey. And great job hosting. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you, as I said, for agreeing to watch it if you were in the mood. And I'm really glad that you got something out of it and you enjoyed it, because it would have been quite sad if you'd been like, "Oh, I watched it for the podcast, but I thought it was rubbish."
Yeah, that's not going to be fun. Yeah, don't give me any horrible movies to watch. Like,
Oh, I tell you.
don't. Yeah, we're not watching Species or Lawnmower Man or any of those things. So
All of the Species and Lawnmower Man fans turned up.
not making me watch those, Mike.
No, that's the kind of thing DK would probably be watching on his cult film episodes. That's not,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, but anyway, yeah, no, and again, everyone do join me in thanking Adrienne for taking part with this and for being just a great voice in our Discord and on social media. Did you have anywhere where people can find you, Adrienne, if they'd like to?
Oh, I don't think anybody wants to suffer through my obsessive American political Twitter, but if they do, I am at AL Park-Tucker 2 on Twitter, and I think I'm at like Adrienne SoCal or something on Mastodon and Post. If anybody follows Mike, they can probably find me out there, and then come and join our Discord if you're nerdy. Mike's fun, a great host out there. There's lots of humor, silly stuff, and you can talk about anything you want.
Yes, and we have channels for everything.
Yes, we actually do.
We got a little spoiler thing for things that are coming out, like new movies and shows. We got Treks everywhere. We got Marvel everywhere. We talk about a lot of stuff, plus comedy and just general chatter and all kinds. So yeah, right. Awesome. So do join us again, especially if you've enjoyed this episode. We will be back, as I said, in a couple of weeks, where I will be hopefully joined by DK to the hosting chair again, but we'll definitely be joined by Connor Esser from the Nerd Bible podcast over at the Pasty Sheep Network, and we are going to be reviewing the frustratingly named Scream from 2022, or Scream 5, as it seems to have retrospectively be called, which it should have been in the first blooming place. But yes, ahead of the release of Scream 6, which I'm also very excited about, we're going to be reviewing that kind of soft relaunch of the franchise, I would say it is, and see what we thought of that. So yeah. All that remains is to again say thank you so much, Adrienne, for joining us. Thank you to all of you out there who are listening. And yeah, remember, in the epic words of Arnie, we'll be back.
I'll be back.